Together here February 17th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. I'm calling this meeting to order of the Columbia Public Safety Committee. We have quorum, so we will hop. Do we need to take a formal roll call, or can we hop right into the exciting agenda? Fantastic. All right, so June 25th, 2025 was the last time we got together. Heard a good quarterly update from Chief Holbrook at the Public Safety Committee meeting. Hope you got a chance to look at those minutes. This is the same three committee members from that time. Actually, no, it's not. Yes, it is.
Am I on your committee?
Yes, I keep forgetting. Yes, it was, Councilwoman, Mayor Pro Tem, you are. Did anybody, is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes, thank you. Moving into presentations. Looking forward to hearing two great presentations today of what our public safety teams are doing. We are pressed for time today, so we have about an hour and 15 minutes. So I'd like to throw it to Chief Holbrook to introduce place-based crime reduction in the Millwood Avenue corridor.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. As you said, we're going to talk about an initiative that we had quite a bit of success with this year. I've got three people joining me today. Captain Jeff Brink. Jeff's an 18-year veteran of the police department. He's currently assigned to the Southeast region as a region commander.
And he used to be in my
And
area.
yes, we stole him from, we promoted him and stole him from the North region.
I just
Yes.
want to put that on the record.
Okay.
And we're very grateful for that.
And he is complimented by Investigator Cannon Fulmer. Cannon's been with the police department 15 years, and he is our I wouldn't call him our chief analyst, but he is a crime analyst that we, when it comes to violent crime, he's really our subject matter expert and really leads our department in strategic thinking and planning in terms of our response to our gun violence. And then we're also joined by Dr. Hunter Bomey. He's a professor of criminology and with the University of South Carolina. He was part of this initiative. His role was planning and execution and implementation of this initiative, but also he served as our third-party evaluator. So, and he's going to talk a little bit about what his role with that is. So I'm going to kick it off to Cannon to give you an overview of gun violence in our city, and then I'll let Jeff talk specifically about this initiative. And as a side note, Jeff recently completed the executive leadership program at the University of Chicago, and part of that program was this initiative was part of his presentation. He did that program, and this group here will be presenting in May at a national symposium to talk about this evidence-based strategic initiative and how it can be replicated.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Is it all right if I stand up?
Absolutely.
Chief said, I'm Cannon Fulmer. I'm a crime analyst here at the City of Columbia Police Department, and we're going to talk about this 90-day intervention we did on the Millwood Avenue corridor. And to start off, I'm just going to give a brief background on what's going on.
If you're gonna stand, Cannon, you're gonna have to use the mic, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
So I'm going to start off with like a brief background on like what's going on with gun violence in Columbia. So here are our shooting totals over the past decade or so. And you can see a lot of these years we had between like 60 and 95 shootings in Columbia. This breaks them down by fatal and non-fatal shootings. So in the period from 2021 to 2023, those numbers were much higher than we want to see, 92, 98, 85. In the past 24 months, though, we've managed to get those numbers down a lot more. But relevant to what we're going to talk about today with this intervention is the fact that gun violence in Columbia, like most American cities, is extremely spatially concentrated. So about 40% of our shootings every year happen in just about 3% of the city's surface area. This is about like 1.8 square miles or so. And here highlighted in red are those areas, I call them the perennial shooting hotspots, because when we have flare-ups of gun violence that are really concentrated, they tend to occur in these areas. Another important fact is that within these areas, some of them are about the size of a neighborhood, but we don't really have violent neighborhoods, we have violent streets. that pattern of concentration repeats itself again within each of these hotspots. So within these hotspots, only about like 10% of the streets or so have about 50% of the violence. The second important fact relevant to this intervention is that we know that there are certain features of the built environment that are predictive of where gun violence is going to occur. What you're looking at here is a map that shows the locations of undermediated abandoned buildings and overgrown vacant lots from a few years ago, but just to give a sense of the distribution of those around Columbia. So a lot of our perennial shooting hotspots also have high concentrations of vacant lots and vacant buildings. And Captain Brink, you want to talk a little bit about the background?
Yeah, so, remain seated, is that okay, everyone?
Seated.
You can say so.
Okay. The main thing that I want to touch on with the project is I was lucky enough to attend the Police Leadership Academy at the University of Chicago, and thank you, City Manager and Chief. The main thing for me attending this program was I was just promoted about 6 months prior to attending, and I wanted to advance myself and gain more knowledge as a commander. And I was given this opportunity, and it was a 6 months program from December of '24 into May of '25. And it was 1 week in Chicago, and then you'd come back a month later. It was 1 week per month for 6 months. And part of the program was a capstone. So each person who attended, there were commanders from all over the country. The thing that I wanted to focus on was gun violence in Columbia. This stretches way back from my time on the Crime Gun Intel unit with Cannon. We always talked about hotspot policing and the importance of focusing on areas that were having the most gun violence. And usually, typically in Columbia, those areas were areas where we have a lot of poverty, maybe not a lot of financial opportunity. The businesses have left those areas. Those areas are most affected by gun violence. So we began developing this project, and it started out as just the idea of high visibility police patrols, which is essentially putting people in the right spots, adding staffing to areas that are ill affected by gun violence. But then we realized when we're talking about the Millwood Avenue corridor, that a lot of our code issues in those areas were leading it to make it less likely for gun violence to fade away. So we had to have a multi-pronged approach to this initiative. And I think obviously Cannon's gonna go into a little further about the multi-pronged approach. When this was presented in Chicago, I spent 4 or 5 months developing it with Cannon, and then I'd go back to Chicago. The chief of police, retired chief of police from New York City, was my evaluator. Every time we'd add a step to this program, I'd talk about lighting. We need more lighting. He'd say, you're on it, you're on it. So each time we'd go back, we'd add another prong to this. And it turns out to be about a 6-prong intervention that we needed. We knew at the end that we needed that buy-in with the officers because we needed everyone on track. So throughout this process, myself, Cannon, and Dr. Bomi, we attended community meetings in the Millwood area, most notably MLK. They have a wide base at that location. They have strong attendance at their meetings, and we just wanted to let them know the reasons behind why we were doing this and to be perfectly clear and explain everything to them. We also used a community partner, Serve and Connect, to host a party at this in this neighborhood, a block party. So there were a lot of different things that we touched on that Cannon's gonna go over that made it effective. But I think most importantly, on our end, was getting the officers to buy in, realize the importance of the project, and to do it without using a lot of money. So those are the things I'm most proud of when we talk about it, and I can't wait for you guys to hear all about it.
Yeah, and so I'll just say that when we selected the area for this intervention, this is an area that's about 1/3 of a square mile, and it's highlighted in blue here on this map. These red dots on this map show the number of violent crimes that have occurred over roughly a decade in the southeast region. So you can see the Millwood Avenue, what we're calling the Millwood Avenue corridor, which takes in most of the MLK neighborhood and most of the Lion Street community, is about 1% of the surface area of southeast region. But it's had 24% of the fatal and non-fatal shootings over the past few years and 10% of the violent crimes from southeast region, despite being just 1% of its surface area. So relevant to what I was saying earlier, though, is just that it's important to know that how concentrated things are and that there's reasons why it concentrates in those places. So two of our main pillars for this intervention were what we called high visibility directed patrol. So we had the officers go to just the areas that were most affected by gun violence.
I do have one question, because I'm not as familiar. Are these mostly single-family home areas, or are there some apartment complexes in here as well that increase density?
So in this particular area, to my understanding, I think we have almost no multifamily buildings, very few of them.
Family.
There's a little bit of senior, some senior living, but it's
Yeah, there's like
primarily.
one or two. Yeah,
primarily
there's one
single
area
family.
that's apart.
The actual cutoff point is before you get to the Oaks, the old Gonzalez Gardens. So, that was our cutoff line on Washington Street. So a lot of the multifamily complexes were not in the main area.
And I've got a few more maps that'll kind of show what the layout of the community looks like. But these operational components of our intervention, again, were high visibility directed patrol, systematic blight abatement, and then we also did some structured narcotics investigation. We improved lighting. We had some landlord accountability through the code enforcement department. We put out some door hangers with property crime prevention tips, and we had the Serve and Connect block party. The outcomes we looked at that you'll see here, we looked at the effect on property crime, shot spotter alerts, shootings reported to the police department, violent crime reports, and community sentiment.
And Ken, and just for note, because Ms. Wilson references this a lot, they also applied a SEPTED review of the neighborhood, so they did an environmental assessment and design.
So this is a look at these streets right here that you see highlighted in blue are the 10 or 12 streets in this community that have about half of the violent crimes of the past few years. What you see here, these red dots are violent crimes reported to the police department, and the yellow dots are shot spotter alerts that were detected. And I think this is over like a 3-year period. So we asked the officers just to be very present and visible on these streets, especially during the hours of the week where the violent crime and the shootings were most likely to happen. For gunshots, that was between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m., Thursday through Saturday. For general violent crimes, it was about like 3 in the afternoon to like 9 p.m. Most days of the week. But what we know from empirical research that's been done on this, and Dr. Bowman can speak more about this, that having an officer there for 15 minutes or less on the block reduces the likelihood of a crime occurring for the next like 45 minutes or so. So especially during the high crime times, we asked our officers to be out there and just be very visible for 15 minutes or less and leave. So that was the commitment we had from the officers. This didn't require any mandatory overtime. We had the officers who were working their regular shifts go out there and fulfill these calls for service during these times. And during the intervention, the officers completed over 2,000 high visibility calls for service over this 90-day period, focusing again just on these streets where violence was hyper concentrated in this community. So scattered throughout this community are overgrown lots and abandoned buildings and things like that. So we asked the code enforcement officers to look at the whole neighborhood and just take special care to make sure that those abandoned buildings stayed secured, that we remediated the vacant lots, that we located all the places that had issues like this, and they also addressed other blight-related issues that they felt were related to violent crime. And we had a humongous increase in the amount of activity the code enforcement officers did during this period, which is shown on this chart here. And they did a lot of cleaning up the vacant lots and remediating the abandoned buildings. And again, we know that works because there's been empirical research done in other cities, especially Philadelphia, that have really rigorous design that show that there's a causal relationship between the presence of these unsecured abandoned buildings and these overgrown vacant lots and nearby violent crime.
I just jump in real quick on that. So the code enforcement crew, not only did they go around and create cases to fix the abated lots and the issues that they were seeing, if there was an out-of-state owner, what they would do is immediately send the crew in and just mow those properties without the normal process. It was a lot on our crew, but we showed quick benefit that they were actually taking a proactive approach to go out and knock out these lawns instead of waiting 2 or 3 weeks until the homeowner made arrangements.
Was there some give and take as far as, let's say, owner-occupied residents, maybe some seniors that didn't have the capacity to really get it to that next level of code enforcement where we might have asked them to? Did y'all work with them?
A lot of the cases that Ian worked on this, he made direct contact with elderly. There are a lot of elderly who lived in the area, and they did not charge to assist with the lawn maintenance. So there were several properties inside that were not charged. the out-of-state owners and the people who are inaccessible to get the work done, they were. But if it was a regular homeowner that was in Columbia, they did it as just a nice thing to do to clean up the neighborhood.
Great, thanks.
I live pretty close to this area. I've also noticed a much more of a police presence in the areas around this area.
Yes.
So which I think is, when I worked at Milliken, we used to talk about managing by walking around. So policing by driving around, I think is important because, I think it's important for every neighborhood to see a police car.
Well, you're right, and we would like to have greater presence, that obviously is something that we're, working very hard to, as we increase our staffing. So what we've had to learn to really lean into is being more intelligence-driven. That's why we lean on Canon so heavily, on making sure that at the minimum, where we do have hot spots, that's where we have our greatest presence. And it's not just a general hotspot. It's, one of the things they'll brief on in roll calls is where it's happening, but when it's happening too. So we know we have a window where there's a higher probability of something happening. So
So it's really a predictable model.
there is some predictability to this, yes.
Yeah, outside of this intervention, Cannon's provided my officers in Southeast Region heat maps of collected data over the years of where predictive crime rates are going to happen. That gives them the ability and the supervisors to pay attention on where we're actually deploying our resources and putting people in the right areas that are commonly affected by crime in those areas.
Is there also like a waterfall effect of the area around this area? So in other words, if you have increased police presence in a specific area, would there be general lessening of crime all the way around it?
Hunter, do you want to
Yeah,
jump in and address that?
So we measure either diffusion of benefits, kind of spillover, or displacement of crime. I know a big concern of officers is you're just going to push crime down the street. We're able to analyze that, and we did here, and we tend to find either null effects or a diffusion of benefits.
I would think that it wouldn't push it away, it would help reduce it because it's, if a car's here, when you're here, it's a lot closer from here to here than it is from someplace else to here. So the presence in general should be a
Absolutely.
benefit to everybody.
Most,
I think psychologically as well as, tactically.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
We also had structured narcotics investigations. We asked the narcotics team to get out there and make arrests of people involved in illegal drug activity. Our plan was to have a lot of arrests during this period, but one of the things that our organized crime and narcotics team found is that it was hard for them to find targets once we got the intervention really rolling. So I have this quote up here from our narcotics sergeant, and he said, they went out and they just saw so much less drug activity. It was getting a lot harder for them to make buys and make cases out, and which is what we were hoping to see.
Yeah, as the intervention progressed, the less likelihood of observing drug activity. Basically taking it from an open air drug market to minimal drug sales at
But
all.
we don't know, to Councilman Brown's point, did that distribution and sales go elsewhere? That we just,
So generally, the academic research indicates that it doesn't, that you just have less crime across the entire city when you reduce it at one place, and the nearby areas probably also experience a decrease in crime. But to know for sure, I guess Dr. Bowman's going to talk more about that. Who knows for absolute sure, but the evidence indicates that doesn't happen.
thank you.
What happens regarding sustainability when it stops?
I'll be able to talk about that.
I'll tell a few more things we did, and I'll let him just have at it, because y'all are asking all the questions. We increased lighting on the streets that had, Captain Brink worked with Dominion Energy. They increased the street lighting on the streets that had the highest concentration of violent crime.
And then our city staff was able to go to those, where the lights were increased and the LEDs were brought in. They cut the trees down so it'd be more visible and the lighting was covering more of the street. Which, as you know, that area is covered in old trees, so it blocks a lot of the light. So they went in there and did that, which we are very grateful for, and they did it almost immediately, so.
So
very
that slide one, does it show where the LED streetlights were placed, or?
I don't have the
it's just-
exact, these are the streets we asked them to improve
Yeah,
on.
it's Green, Cherry, Bratton, and King is where they did the full increase, and then they did light repairs throughout the entire, MAC. So that, while they were out there working, they drove around and found lights that did not have, the lights were not actually working, so they replaced those. They just didn't do the accelerated LEDs.
So that's a thank you Dominion moment, like that was just through your partnership
Yeah,
explaining
I,
what?
through our relationships, we know the director of security over there, and he got me in touch with the right people, and they came in. They actually did it way before I wanted them to.
Right.
I asked by email, and he's like, "Yep, we're on it. We got a crew coming out there now." And I told Cannon, he's like, "No, wait." I said, "I'm not waiting." No, we
For the
got
May
it.
presentation, throw a Dominion logo on there.
Yeah.
No, Dominion has been a great partner. Their director of security's prior FBI assigned to this region. So we all have a good relationship with him.
Right.
Also, we had a feeling that some landlords, we need to reach out to some landlords that weren't taking care of their properties the way they should. What we did is we took a look at all the rental properties that existed in this area, and all of them that had had a violent crime report or a ShotSpotter report in the prior 12 months, or more than 10 police responses to that property. We gave all of those to code enforcement, and they took a look at that list of properties and made a case-by-case determination about how best to deal with them. So of that list of about 12 properties or so we identified, code enforcement sanctioned 2 of them, sent them all like nuisance warning letters, and collected about $4,000 worth of fines from these property owners. Audrey Lewis told me that she got a good response from the landlords. They reached out trying to find out what they need to do to make sure they're not liable to be declared a nuisance. And these are the locations of the properties we reached out to. But some of these properties had more than 10 police responses. The average number of police responses over the course of a year for rental properties in this area is 1. We usually only respond on average 1 time to a rental property in these 2 neighborhoods. So some of these properties, one of them had as many as 50 police responses over 12 months. So that was one of the things we reached out. Beforehand, we did look at like parcels that were owned by out-of-state landlords, and we found that those had a statistically significantly higher rate of like shootings and things like that occurring on the parcel. That there isn't perfect overlap between these properties and the out-of-state landlords, but it's just an avenue that we're investigating.
And I think that demonstrated validity in Booker, Washington, where we had owner occupied or owner living in the city versus absentee landlord. You would see that where you would have multiple calls for service in the not local landlords versus.
One of the management companies that we had a problem with here also owns some of those properties on like Beaumont Street that we've had issues with in that community as well.
So what about the sanction? What is, it says 1 violent crime, 1 ShotSpotter alert, or more than 10 calls for service in the past 12 months were examined on a case-by-case basis.
So what I did, because I have the data, I just took all the properties that met those 3 criteria, and I gave all those to Audrey Lewis because she's our expert on like the city ordinance, and she made a determination about what the appropriate way to respond from the code enforcement department was to each of these landlords. And those are the decisions she made.
And those sanctions were based on the point-based system that they utilize.
So if there's a violent crime, it's not necessarily that it was sanctioned.
I think one of the issues she told me is like, for instance, if it's domestic violence, I think the ordinance like has a carve out for that, and situations like that someone needed to like put eyes on instead of just looking at the numbers.
To your point, Ms. Wilson, where the ordinance does, if we have a serious incident in a rental property where there's an extraordinary response, that immediately throws that into a category where they get a letter from us, a nuisance, a letter suggesting, requiring them to meet with us to discuss the property potentially being declared a nuisance.
And I'll add too, I think the times where something big and it's not cited is because the person living there did not in any way contribute to whatever happened. If other people, neighbors dropped, but like they were not involved in the matter,
Yeah,
so.
we've seen that on the north side.
Yeah.
But for the instances where they were, then you look at that
High
differently.
likelihood, yes.
Because one of these on here is that instance, and one of these on here now has the property on the market for sale. So I'm just asking questions, like, are we following back up on those instances?
I would have to ask
Which we can talk offline.
Director Hatcher on that.
Well, and this this will dovetail into, I think, something you were gonna mention at the end of this. So this area is one of many where we are, as a council, our suggestion is gonna be that we revisit, understanding just the complexity and the number of recovery, halfway, and mental health facilities. And most of the time, those are all a combination together. It's not, they're not singular. They are,
Does that mean they do all of those
they're
services?
units that are receiving everybody in that category that we do not, we're inventorying that now for presentation in a future time for you all, but
I think zoning, I mean, to cut you off, Chief, has to be involved too.
Yes.
Because I don't know that, I mean, you all are doing a lot with this. And this is, I mean, fantastic information. But the workarounds that are occurring.
right, loopholes.
And loopholes. And if there's a zoning matter that needs to be addressed.
And I don't know that we ever are gonna prevent somebody that's strategically trying to find these workarounds, but to me, what's important is that we have valid ordinances that allow us to effectively respond to it. So if we have like what we've done with rental property, if we have a absentee landlord, irresponsible, ownership management, and that's the problem, and that's causing the problem in that neighborhood. We need to effectively deal with that, remove that problem. Because we typically see, when we have these hot spots, it's usually, there's usually a cause for it, or some causation, and if we can mitigate that, it's gonna be helpful. If once we locate all these transitional housing locations, typically if we have an issue, it's tenant specific. That, they, once they got there, then we start having these problems pop up, so.
And outside of this initiative, that this area in general has a lot of those housing
Yeah.
issues.
We also distributed door hangers that had tips for property crime prevention to all the rental properties, because we had heard from a lot of community members. They felt a lot of these properties were rented, especially by like college students who weren't careful about locking up their things, and that brought people into the community who were committing thefts. And we worked with Serve and Connect to have a block party at MLK Park. And I just want to rush through that to give it to Dr. Bomi, because he's got a lot to say.
Yeah, so what I did to evaluate the crime outcomes here is I used, we have these advanced statistical methods called synthetic control. I took all 156 block groups in CPD's jurisdiction. I, looked back in time, put all the crime within every block group. We kind of conceptualized as a neighborhood, put covariates, rental property, percent rented to create a synthetic MAC. Basically, what would have happened in the MAC had the MAC intervention not happened. And you see this dotted line here, with, post is what the model would have predicted would have happened in the MAC had CPD not executed the MAC. And you see here, it's largely trending upward after the intervention. One could be due to seasonality. This happened in the summer when we tend to see crime go up, especially violent crime, but you see that difference there between the dotted line post-intervention and the solid line is what we call the average treatment effect. And that is our coefficient here, which is this. I made sure to highlight the significant findings here in green to bring your attention to it. Other than murder, which is a very rare event, which I think was just a statistical rarity, it's hard to detect an effect there. We saw during the 90 days of this intervention, there was a decrease in pretty much every crime during. Now, I also looked at crime 90 days after CPD pretty much pulled out of the area or stopped, you don't full pull out, but, stopped the intervention. There was a 90-day sustained effect on all property crime aggregated together, robbery and burglary. So we call that residual deterrence. There was residual deterrence here when you think about it. If these, residents, I was one of those, I live in the MAC, see officers every day. For 90 days, it takes a little while before they realize officers are not there.
So just for my clarity, after 90 days, you still saw sustained in property robbery, burglary?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. So during the 90 days, we saw a total decrease in 9 serious crimes. So basically what that model was predicting was 9 serious Part 1 crimes would have happened had CPD not executed this intervention. We also did a pre and post survey to a random sample of street addresses or residents within the MAC. So about 3 weeks before the intervention, sometime in May, and then right after the intervention in August. We did basically the same exact questions, pre and post, to see if their perceptions of police, perception of CPD and crime shifted. Here you see these changes. The red is, negative from pre to post, but these negative shifts were non-significant. So that could be random noise statistically, but the positive shifts you see and everything was largely positive here. These two columns on the right, one, I see code enforcement often, and burglars and thieves will be arrested, was statistically significant from pre to post. So we're asking the same addresses, the same question pre to post. You see that they're increasing their perception on those items after the intervention. And then CPD officers' care was almost significant at the 0.05 p-value level. And then violent criminals are arrested, more likely to be arrested, was almost significant. But I still take this as, these are positive shifts here, regardless of, statistical significance.
But looks like some folks didn't recognize the increase in lighting. Am I reading that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, which is, I think everyone could ask for more lighting, right? Like, or speed bumps or something like that, although lighting increased, they might not have been on those streets.
Well, light, good, that's good. Neighbors are starting to notice.
Yeah, they definitely noticed.
The lights, that's the issue. I don't think they changed the lights. Yeah, they changed the lights.
So another thing I'm working on, it's not in this PowerPoint, is also that door hanger distribution happened 11 days before the end of the intervention on August 18th. So I'm able to track that to see how long just a one-day door hanger distribution had on crime. I'm looking at small little hexagons that I've put around each area that received the door hanger, and I'm comparing them to other hexagons throughout the city. And right now, early indications is there was a lasting 90-day reduction in burglary in the areas that got the door hanger relative to control areas. So this is just a one-shot. Was it DeRozier's? Talked to him. It took 2 hours to do.
Yeah, about eight members of the police department went out and spread throughout the area and delivered them all in a 3-hour time period.
So my, third-party evaluation here, I've done a lot of place-based evaluations. There was great planning. There was great treatment fidelity. There was a consistent feedback loop. Every Monday morning, Cannon sent updates to the Southeast region, which I think helped with buy-in. This is planned from the PLA on. I jumped on board probably 2 months before this was kicked off to give, some evidence-based feedback. I can pass these around, but everything that was done here, there's a body of evidence of citations that this works. Everything's evidence-based here. Shootings flatlined, burglaries flatlined during the intervention, and they lasted on robbery and burglary 90 days even after they pulled out. So my knowledge here and working on these and evaluating these, hotspots policing tends to target violent crime. You don't see much of an effect on property crime because it's really targeted towards the small street segments. But here, there was a whole wipeout in all types of crime here, and I rarely see that. In my evaluations of other interventions, the literature, you tend to see some fluctuations. But here, when you see a whole wipeout of different types of crime, that's very impressive. And also, when you do these pre-post surveys, you tend to see non-significant changes in public perceptions, which we see as a net positive, right? You reduce crime, and you didn't see significant shifts in public perceptions. Here, we saw shifts. And that's very rare to see as well.
So would we conclude then that crime is local and the prevention of crime is local too?
Yeah, it's in terms of crime being very localized. Yeah, definitely.
Then the prevention would also be localized.
Yes. So what I'm willing to pass out here, the law of crime concentration, that first bullet point. We've been able to find this in almost every city. 5 to 7% of street segments generate over 50 to 60% of a city's crime. And even smaller than that and getting more granular, those 5 to 6% street segments generate over 70% of violent crime. And that's, Cannon will vouch that's no different here in Columbia. So, using evidence-based, intelligence-led policing to put police strategically in areas is something that happened here, and you see the effectiveness.
I'll just add a couple things. One, thank you for the work you did with us. Again, it always helps. We kind of know what we do and we see that, but it's always refreshing to hear validation, especially really crunching numbers. I say this in the staff meetings all the time. Poor culture kills the best strategies. And one of the things that Captain Brink has done so well, and I want to compliment him on this, is he got buy-in from his officers. And it's so important when we ask our officers to do so much across the board, so many different things, but when they really feel they see tangible evidence that what they're doing is moving the needle, that is something that is well received. And that's one of the things that I think he did real well. And Cannon is a big part of that, at roll calls, explaining this stuff, showing that because you all did this, this is what we're seeing. And some of that was just, maybe sitting in a very specific hot spot for visibility for 30 minutes at a certain time and a certain day of the week. Just, little things like that. And then, you always have your go-getters, but this, to me, what they did well is they brought along some that may just, be answering calls. They created that buy-in. And the other thing that they did, MLK neighborhood is a long-standing historic neighborhood. A lot of, multi-generational folks have lived there. They hold us accountable. And so seeing some of the feedback that we got and some of the data from that neighborhood in particular, I think is telling. We would know if we were not hitting a mark. And I think they felt part of this because they were brought in on the front end and informed along the way. And they saw a lot of people firsthand knocking on doors. And but most importantly, this can be replicated. We've got to get our commanders to think like this and deploy the resources. This is a great example of the different divisions within the city collectively working, towards a goal. We couldn't have done this without code enforcement, without forestry, public works. It takes that. And, I think anytime we're in budget discussions or what have you, it's always good to know that, everybody's got their primary mission, but we're having to think of innovative ways to be more effective in everything that we do. And we have to, cross-pollinate with our staff. And I think we've done a really good job these last couple of years doing that.
Thank you, Chief. The evaluation summary's up there. Councilwoman, Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any questions?
No, I just I was hoping that also doing this could help us when we maybe aren't fully staffed. Because then we have to make decisions about where resources are. And so I'm curious to see what this looks like where you do have multifamily. Because I asked that earlier to see the difference between single-family homes and how those situations may change if you're in an apartment complex.
Yeah, let's take the last couple minutes to discuss that. The data, the hotspots. I feel like you have it toned up that you could actually get down to the actual part of the multifamily development or part of the street in neighborhoods to really send off those, I guess, touch points that we need to focus on areas.
So, Ms. Herbert, your intuition is correct that our understanding is it's harder to do this at the multifamily complexes. USC has a researcher that Dr. Bomey works with, that we work with, named Brandon Tragle, who did some of this work in Dallas, and they had some success at certain locations in tackling multifamily housing units that were very high crime, and that's some of our issue here in Columbia. And we've been having that discussion with Dr. Tragle for a few weeks now, looking over the research. It's more challenging, but it can be done, and we'll see what we can do here. And it is true that some of our particularly challenging apartment complexes in Columbia, we can look at the actual like building numbers that are have more problems than others. So we do know that sort of thing. It's just, and we can talk about it more like in the
It seems like
future.
it's a tenant control, a tenant flow
It
issue
is.
as well.
My comment on that would be where we typically see multi-unit locations that are problems is outside ownership. You know, an investment group out of state that owns it. And so they are they have to maintain it at a certain occupancy level to make money. And they put a lot of pressure on management to maintain that occupancy level, which ultimately results in overlooking bad actors in order to maintain that occupancy level. So if you really peel the layers back like that, that's typically the common denominator. That's what we run into, quite frankly, in Ripplemire. Over in that area there's a pretty consistent turnover with management. And typically when you see that, it's, you know, you're kind of starting from scratch. And, you know, and everybody has the best of intentions, but it's just, when occupancy level equals profit and your investors are about profit, that's challenging.
It's logical.
Ms. Brown, any questions?
No, I think part of the long-term strategy too, though, is that, you know, we've got to deal with these empty lots. I think that's if the only way to have a sustainable, safe neighborhood is to have more houses and less empty lots in there. So I think that's a goal of our city.
Well, and I think the next year is gonna actually tell that story in this area.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the development going
There's
on,
development.
We do,
around
we see what.
MLK Park and
The
everything.
Green Key program is gonna be, I think, instrumental in creating greater sustainability to reductions that we have, because you're gonna see home ownership from some police officers too, and some
Right,
of these
neighborhoods,
challenged areas.
yeah.
It's gonna be huge.
So one other question, any difference between like abandoned homes that are all boarded up versus just a vacant lot?
My understanding of the research on this is what's ideal is that you have a house that's occupied or a park type setting or something like that, right? But my understanding of the randomized control trials that have been done on this have been, if you can just keep people from entering the building illegally, you're gonna get a reduction in crime nearby. Ideally, we would like it to be beautiful. The vacant lots, and feel free to jump in, my understanding is that they're less of an effect than the abandoned buildings. Intuitively, as a patrol officer, that didn't make sense to me because you see the vacant lots when you drive through the community. But when we look at it from a data perspective, we see a bigger effect of having abandoned buildings than overgrown vacant lots, but both of them have an effect. But just ideally, we would turn those vacant lots into like a park, right? But if you just mow the grass, there have been randomized control trials to show that just mowing the grass will help reduce crime nearby. And we're really fixated on what we can get done right now with the resources we have and work towards perfection as we go.
And if you look at the Millwood Avenue corridor that we did our project in, or our initiative, we had a ton of generational pathways and cuts that we saw gun violence. If you want to talk a little bit about.
I do want to say that, like, that's the strongest thing I've seen in the data so far is that these unofficial pedestrian pathways. I think planners call them desire paths and stuff. At the police department, we call them cuts. And those seem to have a very strong relationship in predicting where shootings occur. And if anybody has ideas about like how we can address those, I would love that. But we tend to see those all over the place where we have shootings.
Beautification on,
Yep.
you know, possibility of, you know, especially there's one that goes through from Queen all the way to Cherry Street. That's always been there. It's on that plane.
You see a lot over off of Ripplemire too, coming to Beltline.
Yeah, building some sort of greenway, some sort of area where you can't walk through there, because that's where we've seen a lot of drug sales, let's see, a lot of shooting incidents. And you create growth where it looks good, it doesn't look bad at all, it's pleasing to the eye, and it also prevents people from walking through and doing affairs.
And I think it's because the community can't regulate that space on its own because you can't see what's going on in it. Nobody owns it. I think that's the problem, but we don't know. We're looking for a
Yeah, if y'all
solution.
could bring some case studies forward from maybe some of your network that we'd love to take a look at that. All right, any other questions?
We've got our next ceasefire call-in is April 29th at Busby Street at 6 o'clock. This will be, I think, our 12th, but it'll be, we'll be pushing 350 offenders that we're calling in, and we're working with the University of South Carolina and the Sheriff's Department for our first juvenile offender call-in. That's in the near future, too.
Well, really appreciate all the hard work and the teamwork that went into this and the great results. So look forward to working with you on the sustainability of it all. Ms. Wilson?
No, we'll talk offline. I'm very interested in the sustainability piece and which corridor we move into next and how you maintain the cultural shift
Yeah.
in the areas with the officers, so y'all
And that
can-
took a lot with
yeah.
MLK to convince them that we were there for the right reasons.
Right, but great job.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you
Fantastic.
very much,
Thank
y'all.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brink, I still love you.
Yes, ma'am. If you need anything, you know,
All right, thank you.
You gotta go through me first to get.
Trayvon is up. Item number 3, the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement update. This has Mr. Trayvon for him. I'm pretty sure it's Dr. I just want to have that in the
Dr. Fordham.
mission, or the minutes. Look forward to hearing from you.
Yes,
And if
sir.
your team wants to come sit up here, or if they're more comfortable back there, you just let us know.
Yeah, come sit. And so good afternoon, everybody, and thank you all for the opportunity to provide an update from the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. Again, I'm Trevon Ford, I'm the Director of the Office, our Program Manager.
My name's Crystal Gay. I'm Amy Free, I'm the Research Analyst.
And so we'll dive right in. I will actually skip through some of this since we have the same committee, so some of this is really information that we've gone through last time. So this is kind of what we'll go through, really, but again, we'll kind of skip some and summarize the office, vision, mission, motto, highlight some key initiatives from last year, 2025. We'll discuss the outcomes and impact and outline some next steps. And what you see before you is the actual Pathways to Peaceful Neighborhoods. It's an activity booklet that we created in the office. It's probably about 30 pages. It's youth and adult centered, so it can be used in both. We've been actually distributing these at community events, working with church groups inside of schools, right? And it talks about an array of age-appropriate topics, whether it's from elder scams or whether it's just healthy relationships as well too. So we do have copies of those that we give out.
Kids.
It's not just for children, correct.
It was a coloring book.
Of course, I'll skip some of this. That's our other team member, Raphael Brown, who could not be here today. He's our newest member of the team. I think Councilman Herbert got to meet him last night. He is system impacted, just involved. He actually,
Tell us what system impacted means.
yeah, so he's formerly incarcerated. He was charged as a juvenile when he was 16 years old for a decision that he made. I won't share too much of his story because it's very powerful. And he will have that opportunity to share it through monthly sessions that he'll be hosting soon. But he's the newest member of our team. Again, he's come out, he did 26 years, 9 months. Every time he says it, I have to think about that as well too. But he talks really about to individuals about decision-making choices and how the choice that he made almost 40 years ago impacts him now. And he's come out and he's done some research work. He's worked with the Vera Institute of Justice. He's worked with the Department of Corrections and Mentoring Restorative Justice. So he's the newest member of our team. Essentially through all of this, the office, we've really done a lot of evaluation and assessment. And we've really come to find that looking at, again, national best practices, to be a non-enforcement office that really takes things from a public health approach. As we talk about violence in general, we look at a model that violence is preventable on the front end, and that a lot of times when folks are not feeling well, usually it's because they haven't been feeling well for a day or two or a couple before they end up going to the doctor, right? So going to the doctor is that actual crime, that actual violent event, but a lot of times they had a stomach ache or they had a headache or they were nauseous or something was hurting before they did that. So we take the approach of violence is preventable. This is our team.
Because that was the name of it. Gun violence
Right,
prevention.
it was the Office of Violent Crime Prevention. And so one of the things in really looking at that is we got out. And as of to date, we've received surveys and we've done feedback from over 2,000 residents, 1,400 last year. But a lot of things we heard from residents and just stakeholders is that, there was more focus on personal safety and actual engagement. Folks feeling disconnected, folks feeling like they weren't a part of the solution when it's actually their communities, right? But when we would talk about events, we would talk about programs and say, hey, You all are right here in Belmont. You can come over to Arden Elementary to a Choose Peace Create Change event. They don't feel safe leaving their own apartment complex, much less their own neighborhood. So we really started focusing on going on-site in the apartment complexes, in the multifamily units, working with management, having different training sessions and classes. And so you'll see some of that as well here. But the focus for them was more personal safety and engagement. So we had to address those things first before we could even talk to them about violence prevention and reduction. One key thing I want to talk about just with our mission. Our mission and our vision all align with the council's objectives and also Ms. Wilson's growth plan. Our team came up with this model in 2024. And as prevention starts with engagement, engagement starts with us showing up. That's our motto, that's what we live by as we do this work. And that's the vision as well too. The vision where all residents feel empowered and supported as we work together to prevent violence and improve the quality of life in neighborhoods that we all call home. We have 3 pillars that our office really goes through. When we talk about research and strategic planning, that's going through our data. Again, gathering data, not only that we see from violent crime, but also talking to community members, talking to residents, doing evaluations. Anytime we do an event, we have an evaluation. So we get feedback from folks as well too. We're working as far as a strategic plan on a long-term strategic plan, training development. We've been able to provide trainings for different stakeholders, right? Residents as well, business owners about violence prevention, to talk about just community engagement, to talk about health and wellness and how it plays into personal safety. We've done a lot of those things and partnering with other folks as well too. Our team does a lot of training. And it's primarily because when we talk about violence prevention, it is a field that's very broad, right? But in South Carolina, we're starting to hone in a lot more on some evidence-based practices in the state that aren't seen by other places in South Carolina. That's why, as of today, Columbia is still the only city with an established office focused on violence prevention that is non-enforcement. So, and then the other
Give me
bit,
an idea of training folks on what? Like, give me an example of typical person or group being trained and what they need to know. I'm
right,
just-
and so, and as we talk about key initiatives, we'll get to that as well too. Our team, 2 weeks ago, they were at Columbia High School working with the JAG students, and they did a training on actually workforce development and conflict resolution. It's a series we call Boss Moves Only, but it deals with, some of the feedback we got was that our young people are not handling conflict well in the workplace, right? So they go through a 2-day training with our trainers, right? And then afterwards, they actually get a certificate that they can take to employers and say, hey, I went through this session that should be able to help me with de-escalation, conflict resolution, and job readiness. So we're partnering with Versatile One on that. Another one, and Crystal can share briefly about the teen dating violence awareness that was just hosted last week.
Yes, so last Thursday, I got 105 students registered to attend an event where we talked about teen dating violence awareness. And we had support from presenters from Pathways, Sister Care, Share One Love, and they had talked about conflict resolution, risk as far as what to look for. We talked about even in relationships that trauma informed, like not what's wrong or what's wrong with you, but like what happened. So we kind of, and they were very engaged. It was so good. It was very impactful because the age range, when I said this, I said it because I wanted to make sure that our young adults were we were intentional. And so I said it from 14 to 20. I didn't want to go too far up and I didn't want to go too far young, but like I think that was a good age group for it to be. Yes. And being able to have those real conversations and able to see that, from my own personal story, that because whatever you're dealing with now doesn't define who you are, and you can show up differently and understand some of the things that you may not have gotten in the past because your parents aren't really open to having those conversations. This is a safe space, and I use my social work background, what stays here. We talked about confidentiality. It was so good. I probably went way too far with that, but
That's a lot of definitely.
it was really, really good.
You got just as much out of it as the young people.
I did
Yes.
too. I just was there to assist her, and it was really magical seeing how the kids, you could feel that they wanted to be there. And in an environment where a lot of kids are, because they have to be there, or the class is doing this, we have to go. They wanted to be there, and it was obvious, and it was very good.
Absolutely. And to piggyback off of that, at the end, I was kind of skeptical initially about doing a panel because, they're young and I was like, maybe we shouldn't, but they were very engaged. I was on the panel. Officer Lynch was City of Columbia. He was on the panel, and one of the ladies from Pathways to Healing and Sister Care. And they asked very specific questions to the people that was on that panel, from a law enforcement perspective, from lived experience perspective. They were so engaging. And it made me happy because this was my first program that I created. And it was the fact that I was even able to get that buy-in on a school day was crazy. It was so good.
It is really good.
I think we underestimate.
Yeah.
Oh, well, in the Brown family, we would have done from 18 to 20. We don't play that going out at 14. That ain't gonna happen. So yeah, we could have narrowed the focus. But in the real world,
The father of 4 girls.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah. Right, makes sense.
more narrow focus.
Yes.
But yeah, in the real world, I think that actually has a significant trickle down effect for a lot of people, whether it comes to hanging out with the wrong crowd, not doing good in school, and all these other things that are important to be doing all along the way. So thank you for doing that.
And having it as an option, that's cool, probably isn't even the right word anymore, but an option where these young people would want to be versus the alternative.
Exactly.
And I don't know that, y'all can't be the only ones doing this all the time, obviously, but as much as you can do it, because it's obviously an option they want to take, but they don't have the opportunity.
Plus the resources to parents as well. too.
Yeah. But it's also, human nature tends to pigeonhole us and say,
Exactly.
well, I'm the only one going through this. I'm not talking about it. Everybody's going through this.
Right.
So, and even as a senior adult,
That's
we have a
right.
tendency to think that we're the only, to think that everything's about us, and most of the time, it's really about somebody else. It's really got nothing to do with you.
Right.
So that's, so I read this thing, and it was pretty insightful. The guy said that every time someone's kind of short with me or kind of a jerk, and I think it's about me, I usually think maybe his back hurts. So anyway, so there's just stuff that goes on in the world
We
that's
all
not.
have something going on.
That's right. Everybody's got something going on.
That is correct, and that is why you ask.
Right. The question.
Yeah, don't ask
question.
what's wrong with them, what happened.
Yeah, right.
It's very important. That's right.
You okay?
That's exactly
Yeah, I
right.
want to save some
for the
time to
sake of
talk about
time,
your funding
definitely.
outlets in the future.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Correct. So those are the type of trainings that we do, parenting as well too, and engagement, anti-bullying, handling peer pressure, all those things. I want to kind of shift through this, and that's kind of a year in review of things we've done. We set a goal as far as securing at least $250,000 each year in new grant funding. We were able to do that. Violence prevention, we were able to distribute over 1,000 violence prevention educational materials out in the community, youth and adults. Supportive services through the SCORE program, the South Carolina Opioid Recovery Fund. We were able to expand it with that. And those are free services, whether it's warm handoffs, where folks can get treatment recovery services, case management. They do prevention programming as well, Narcan distribution and trainings as well too. All of those things were expanded in 2025. Some of our key initiatives, and this is what our programs are built on. We have specific youth-centered programs. We have a PSA that talks all about the moral message and share responsibility. That violence is not the way. Together, we can prevent violence because together we are Columbia. And so we do an annual violence prevention summit. And then we also do a vigil. We have our faith-based initiative where we work with our faith-based leaders and how they can be part of violence prevention, how they can host trainings at their churches. And some of them have stepped up. They provided resources. They provided volunteers. We had some that filled up a 15-passenger van, and we went into an apartment complex. That's one of our areas of opportunity, right? I don't call them hot spots or most violent, but in one of our areas of opportunity, we were out there for 3 or 4 hours. Folks just kept coming
Areas
up.
of opportunity.
Areas of opportunity. Yes, ma'am. Again, this is how we're doing our engagement. Through our website, we have a local link, which is our newsletter that we do as well too. We host quarterly community conversations or listening forums. We attend monthly meetings. We rotate, take turns going to neighborhood association meetings. We also host monthly meetings for prevention. We're in schools as well too, working with Richard One.
I will, just to throw in, and Trayvon and his group, they are helpful with the neighborhoods who have a lot of things going on because we can't always go. And so there's certain neighborhoods like Belmont that I know he'll be at the meeting even if I can't be there, or someone from the committee. And I think that helps us have a little more presence too.
And we're often getting feedback from individuals in the communities. As far as upcoming events, I mean, we're partnering with the Department of Public Health to host the state's first Community Violence Intervention Workshop this Thursday. We were setting out to get 50 people together.
Right.
We've got 200 plus 50 people waiting that can't get in.
Where is it gonna be?
It's gonna be at the Metropolitan Convention Center. So you all are welcome to drop in throughout the day if you'd like to. We do have space for that. But just working on more violence prevention. Again, we've increased outreach as well too, which is the supportive services that we're providing to residents for free. For them, whether it's mental health, treatment recovery services, referrals to housing and jobs as well too, through our community partners. Again, we don't do we're not direct service providers. Fortunately, we've got someone with 25 years of experience working at SLED and just background grant administration. We've got Crystal with all of these years of over a decade in outreach and supportive services. So we're able to connect folks to different services. So you couple that with Unite Us and the resource directory that we're working on as well too. Folks can scan a QR code and be accessible, or they can have access to different services throughout the city. So that event's coming up as well. I want to get through this again as we talk about the key outcomes and milestones. Last year, we increased our overall engagement by 24%. And that's just our touch points, being out, being engaged with residents through websites, attending meetings, hosting our events. We increased our violence prevention trainings where we went out and talked to folks about violence prevention topics, youth and adults, by 11%. We conducted neighborhood safety sessions, right, by 7%. Last year alone, we were able to bring in $509,000, 24 as far as an external new dollars. That's a 562% increase from the year before, from 2024. And again, we were able to engage over 7,300 residents last year, which is a 20% increase from the year before. Lessons learned, of course, challenges always staffing and constraints. More of those were internal. We had some internal turnover, but now we're blessed to have an amazing team. Of course, public trust with anything. Resource allocation, which is a big thing as far as with our ARPA dollars, which were being funded the first 3 years. The coordination piece is something we're continuing to work on. And also as far as the limited capacity that we're seeing. We're seeing that when we talk about residents, a lot of our nonprofits are built out of passion, but don't have a lot else. They don't have the infrastructure. So we were able to secure a grant to get them capacity building training. So those will be starting as well too, to make sure that we have partners who are readily available to assist the city in doing this work.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
All right, so a lot of times I try to go back to education, which I think is probably the most important piece of everything, no matter what it is. So if we were able to provide like a tutoring type services or a base of after-school type structured tutoring, do we think that would have a positive impact on not just neighborhoods, but crime in general, or just hanging around in general?
So I would say, based on research and my own background, law enforcement and just criminology, it would from a prevention standpoint. I would from an intervention standpoint because we know that majority of our shootings in the city happen between folks who are about 16 to 24. So we would need something more specific and targeted. So we would need, some of them are not in schools at that time, right? So we would need to tie that into a strategic workforce development in order for that to work.
All right, so let's back it up then. So, there's pretty good, strong, information that says if you're behind in third grade, you're more likely behind in
Correct.
fourth, fifth, sixth,
Yes,
seventh, eighth. Okay, so if we structure the tutoring at the earlier ages, and then, and I've talked to Dr. Walker about this, and I think it's important that we at least talk about this and then decide where to go.
Yes, sir.
What you ought to do is, as a community, what we ought to say is the further you're behind, the more resources you should have to catch up. So,
Yeah.
no matter what that is, and no matter how much it costs, really, I mean, it's really an investment. It's not,
Yes,
it's a
sir, it
cost. I mean, what's the cost of having a community that has crime? I mean, so anyway, I would like to maybe try to explore this year and talk about it, maybe some partnerships where you know, we really work with the younger kids, and then like the workforce development, which we've done a poor job of in our community of, you know, we've got people at Colite that are getting older and older and older, and we don't have a pool of people to replace them with, we just don't. And it's, so we have to do stuff like we have to replace them with equipment and design. So we design people out of our communities. Makes no sense.
Yes, sir. And that's one of the things that on is definitely reaching more youth and reaching them younger, so working with elementary as well too.
And I was gonna say, because the Parks and Rec, they usually have the after-school programs, so that may be really easy, not easier, but that putting all of that together with the kids that we already have.
I think that.
Are you looking for some other kids?
No. I think it's just a matter of connecting the dots. I really do. And making it where it's available, it's structured and available, not just available. So structured and available is important. So
Trayvon, I'm gonna ask you to combine all 8 of these last slides into
I
like a
can't.
minute and a half.
Okay.
You can go to the last.
that's Will's way of telling me that I stole all your time.
So, well, this is
It wasn't me.
It was not.
It wasn't me.
Anyway,
funding overview.
Yeah.
This was the initial allocation, $802,000 that the office was established on. Since then, when we talk about revenue, we've been able to generate and bring in $917,397 in new dollars to provide prevention and also as far as supportive services, because we know that you have to, regardless of whether it's prevention, it's intervention, it's enforcement, whatever, you have to connect folks to services. Otherwise, you see the same individuals, like Chief calls them, the prolific trigger pullers that aren't receiving those services and they're a burden on public safety. So it's just the overview of what we have now as far as staffing wise. But also just showing again, that's the ARPA dollars that's there going through. And so the biggest thing is just requesting as far as just general funds funding to do some pilot programs as well too moving forward. And then aligning policies and then to be able to provide the quarterly updates as well too.
Because all of the ARPA funds are done and gone effective December 2026.
Correct.
yeah, understood.
So,
And so you're working with staff on the budget process.
yes,
I
sir.
do think a stronger bond with not only this committee, but all of council and how we can, you know, all put our heads together when it comes to that. Let's chase federal grants, whatever you need from what you see in your network together. Absolutely, let's do that. So, any other questions or comments? What you're doing is amazing to your team. And Chris, I'm just now realizing I went and stomped through the woods with
Yes,
you.
you
on
did.
Fayetteville.
Yes, you
I
did.
was like, I recognize that voice.
And you know, and I always say this really quick, like out of everybody that came to the pig count, like I was very excited at your approach.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only worked with him.
So let's keep going in the woods.
But, like,
Let's go deeper.
No matter what, like, and sometimes I was trying to be mindful because they was like, Crystal, we're putting you with councilman. I was like, okay. And so I kind of didn't know what to take from that. And so, but the way that you came into it, I was just very grateful because I didn't have to give you the spill. I have to give, hey, this is not the time for law enforcement. We're trying to provide a service. Like what,
Absolutely.
and you really,
Yeah.
so I really appreciate
Perfect.
you.
Well, welcome to the team. It's great to
Why,
know that
thank
y'all have a great team. So, Ms. Wilson, anybody other questions, comments? I do want
Will.
to take 2 more items forward, so don't leave quite yet.
Very proud of the team work.
Thank you.
Thanks for that great update.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much.
Real quick, 2 items that I would like staff to research for the next meeting. I think Chief Holbrook mentioned it, just understanding the scope of boarding houses, transitional housing in our neighborhoods is very important and is a topic that I think all council members hear about. So I would like to understand what that inventory looks like.
And the process of how, like, if a new one wanted to come on, I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, to Ms. Wilson's point, zoning as well, and then business licensing, and making sure that it's not just a free-for-all, that they're truly getting some of the wraparound dedicated services that the landlords probably think they're getting. And then the one other one is I have circulated a couple letters from our hospitality merchants associations asking us to take a look at noise decibel, noise nuisance of vehicles. and the hospitality districts. So
Everywhere.
I think the hospitality districts are a great place to start. Do not want to overburden our enforcement. I want to look at technologies. So Chief Holbrook's going to have his team look into best case studies, front-facing PR campaign, whether we bite off Thursday through Saturday nights. We just really need to work into that. I do think technology can really help us with that as well. So those two items will be coming forward in future meetings. Did y'all have anything else you wanted to tag on to that?
Not at the moment. This was great.
Or may I ask a quick question, Mr. Chair, to our clerk? The first item, I want to say was referred previously to this committee, maybe? Do we need to, or are these, Mr. Brennan,
These,
like
I
your
think, are
items?
new.
kinda
I don't think I
your reports?
officially sent the boarding house.
You did,
to-
okay, because I want to say that they've worked on that a lot, so they'll be.
It wasn't an official, you didn't make it official.
Okay.
yet, we were just still
But
talking
you,
about it.
okay, so officially we'll bring it back.
Yeah.
Do we need to refer I know you're kind of doing it, like you've got some quarterly ongoing updates. Do we need to make official referrals for these two items, Madam Clerk, today, or? You-
I think the items that come from public safety, we probably, if we had them like a public safety update with bullets, we would be safe. If they're gonna be ongoing presentations.
Well, I think they're topics all of council's interested in, so I'll make the
You'll
referral
make the
tonight.
referral.
If you'll put it in a
Okay,
nice
thank
eloquent
you.
way, all right?
Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Anything else? All right, thanks for your time today. Appreciate it. We are adjourned.
Thank you so much.
So, when you're sending the emails